All right, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody? Happy summer? Almost? Is it summer yet? When does summer officially start?
Yeah,
When it hits 90.
June
First
1st.
get out of school. That is a good answer.
Just stick with like June 1st to September 1st.
You like your calendar
Yeah, like my calendar.
efficiency?
Don't bring like summer and start till June 22nd because that's like ridiculous. Even though
That's ridiculous.
Even though
Can we change the quote today to say that's ridiculous? On our calendar. So it is clarity. I was talking to somebody the other day about clarity, and I think as professionals, it's really our job to be clear. Sometimes less is more.
Yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit about today time of possession, sports term.
Ooh.
And isn't that a sports term?
How about the Preds?
They lost.
Yes.
I knew that, but we're gonna. I digress. We're gonna talk about time of possession, and a lot of times as agents, sometimes we do a lot of the talking, and sometimes when we're not totally clear on something, we do even more talking. And so we're gonna talk about how to be clear. But I saw this quote on clarity. It says, "It's a lack of clarity that creates chaos and frustrations. Those emotions are poison to any living goal." So even for ourselves, if we want to know where we're going, just being clear. What's the KISS principle? Keep it simple.
Yep.
Sweetie. Keep it simple, sweetie. We're not going to call her so stupid, but so clarity. That's important there.
Yeah.
So gratitude. So y'all take a second, turn to somebody next to you, and tell them something you're grateful for.
I got to go to Oklahoma City yesterday.
Yeah.
4 flights in one day.
4 flights in one day. Wait, why did you have to connect?
It was not a direct flight. So you go through like Austin. But Jason Shipman, have you ever met him? He's in our leadership lab, but his mom passed away.
That was kind of you to go.
It's good to be there. Really nice.
Always good to be there.
I'm learning that. I've been the guy that like doesn't know what to say. And so I'm trying to show up.
Well, my son had his class has had chicken eggs in an incubator, and they all like half of them hatched on Sunday, and the other half hatched yesterday.
Let me guess, you ended up with some.
No, we don't have any chickens. They'll stay low for long, I don't think. All right, welcome back. Always good energy in here this morning. All right, welcome back, y'all. Anybody have anything they want to share? What you got?
I'm grateful for ECs back here in the back of the room.
Yeah.
We got 8 East agents.
But we have Jason Salt Company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Welcome. Red's got a lot. You got 9 things to be thankful for.
Another one. Another one.
9 East agents. Incredible. And y'all are showing up. What you do? Offer like.
See, our call is going to pay off.
What's that?
Call pay off.
That's good. That's good. Anybody else? I'm grateful for. I was telling Hunter my 5-year-old. His classroom has been. I was going to say growing chicken eggs, but you're not really growing the eggs. They're incubating them. You know how long what the incubation period is for a chicken egg?
I have no idea.
21 days.
Really?
I've learned all kinds of things. And when they start cracking out, that's called pipping. So he's been telling me all about it. And then the teacher set up a little live stream, kind of like this, a live stream YouTube webcam on the chicken eggs. And we got to watch some of them hatch. It was wild. It was really cool. You kind of want to reach in there and just like help them get out, because getting out of that shell is just not an easy thing.
No.
They work at it for a while. Then finally just...
I think you're gonna wind up with some little chickens. That's my prediction.
Oh, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I don't think those things stay small for long. Anybody have chickens? You got chickens?
Virginia wants the chickens.
All right, if I get the chickens, I'm going to give them to Virginia. So that's awesome. All right, so we got some education. Teddy, you got some education you want to talk about?
We can,
Yeah. Here, take my seat.
All right, let's talk about it over here.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
All right, education. Well, if you missed last week, I'm going to encourage you to check it out on the video. Our buyer pros or offer pros, if you will, was
Village Education Online.
yes,
That's where you
yes,
get it.
that's where you get it. Is Village Education Online. We also feed it to you as Jeremy puts together our weekly education email, which we're so grateful for, and we recap often last week's or a spotlighted one. Don't miss it. I'm not kidding you. Even if you've been in this business 20 plus years, I left with at least 3 really incredible ways to win at an offer. You want one?
Yeah, I want one of them.
Okay.
All right, so topic, how to win a multiple offer.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
Quick show of hands, who's been in a multiple offer situation this year? Okay, great.
I think the market's doing something. I don't know, but yes. So Crystal Morgan had posted, if you saw her Instagram, and there were so many, but this one comes to mind in that she had a buyer that did not have any appraisal gap money. Yeah, 0. And so she had they had lost many offers, and she had, when she submitted the offer, she had gone ahead and called the pending comps to find out how far above they went, and if they had satisfied appraisal yet, in order to put as part of her offer package and conversation with that agent a validation to give additional confidence that it would appraise and that they wouldn't need gap. This is next level, in my opinion, friends. I mean, she called all those comps and put that as a part of it, in addition to having her lender do a letter, her lender make a phone call, many things. But the calling the pendings to find out appraisal gap and go to that was kind of next level. There's some other really great gems in there. Yes, so.
I like the idea as a listing, when I've had a listing and I've had a lender on the other side. It's actually always been steadfast people for what that's worth. But getting a pre-approval letter is great. Getting a phone call from the lender and just saying, a human being saying, hey, just to let you know, I've been working with this buyer for a while, or maybe this is the 3rd deal I've done with them over the last 10 years.
Yep.
They're good to go. If you have any questions, here's my cell number.
Yep.
Don't hesitate to call.
Yeah, and
It
Connie
really gives you confidence.
It does, and Connie was on there, and really, you should getting these people underwritten. It's no more pre-qual. It's no more pre-qual letters. It is full underwriting, friends. That is the name of the game, in my opinion. So that's fantastic. After that, we're just done for the year. No, Hunter says no. All right, negotiating tough conversations. Crucial conversations today at 10:30. Commissions. You may have been asked to reduce your commission on a listing.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. We're gonna talk about how to not do that. It just rhymes with no.
Yeah.
But there's a few other tips that we recommend in conversations. Who has been paid less than the competitive market commission of 3% representing a buyer this year? Raise your hand high. High. Okay. Because the listing agent, the cooperative brokerage wasn't offering that. Is that why? Yeah. We're going to talk about that too. Retainer fees. Who's charging retainer fees? Raise them high. We got about 5 for those playing at home, maybe 6. We're going to talk about retainer fees, loyalty discounts, taking that 0.5% or more off of your listing commission, why we don't recommend doing that, and giving you a clear strategy to do that and more. So
It's awesome.
yeah, it's like
really valuable. I had somebody, they would offer, one, they were a really good agent,
Yep.
are a really good agent.
Yep.
And they were offering basically a discount because that's just sort of what they always did, and it made them feel good to just offer it.
yeah,
And yet there were way worse agents out there not doing that.
yeah.
So it's like they're giving this exceptional service. And so I had them do a little quick math, and I said, last year, let's do all your calculations. And when she saw the number of what she basically left on the table,
Yeah.
it was terrifying.
It's probably over 5 figures for sure.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was, a big 5 figures.
So if you give out the 0.5% plus 10% inflation, you've just reduced your income by 26%. Who's working for 26% less this year? Not many. They're working for at least 20% more. So 0.5% is 16% of your fee, right? So we're going to talk about that. And got some other great stuff. Thrive tomorrow. It's getting better and better, folks. I encourage you to come to that. It's not kumbaya, friends. We talk about hot topics and tales from the trenches. We do a breathing exercise. It's just a quick minute of that. Set a mindset moment. And we do reflect on good news, gratitude, and grace. So it's a great way to kick off Wednesday.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and there's and I don't want to get too much into this class, but it's a good situation too. Hunter said this before. If you allow it to be, this business can be kind of lonely. One of the great things about this company is there's an incredible spirit of collaboration, right? And so your best asset is the agent next to you. So go to these things, go to Thrive. If you've got a situation where somebody emailed you because they were too scared to ask you, but they emailed you like, hey, you know, my long lost cousin's brother's sister's wife's friend is willing to do it for less.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to respond, go to Thrive and bring it up.
We talk about all that. We talk about listings, and Emily's on there most weeks, and photos and marketing, and we've sold deals there. We've done coming soons. I mean, it's good stuff. So I'd encourage you to check out the Back at You social media marketing tips. Even if you're not using Back at You, they're register. It's in the PDF in the notes of that calendar entry. But they're doing some great series of classes that we're sharing there too. So if you haven't checked out a Ninja Skills group yet, I highly encourage you to. They are fantastic. Go back to that add it to your calendar slide.
Ninja Skills groups.
There we go. Yep. Thank you. Here's the Ninja Skills groups. Add it to your calendar. Add Parks calendar, education calendar. You can just unclick it if you don't want to see it, but it's nice when you start your week off or on a Sunday night. Go, what do I want to check out this week? Monday at 10 o'clock, we had Parks led a historic homes with Anna Altick. So we'll post that as well. And you can just go to Parks Education Online and check out all their classes too. Make sure you have the Village Education calendar loaded to your phone and computer as well, because again, there's really good stuff in there. I've done this 20 years, and it's not because I'm leading it, but I'm just always surprised every time I go, and I'm like, oh gosh, is Thrive going to be great today? And it's like 2 people show up, and then before I know it, it's really, really incredible. So, but we have anywhere, we get 10 to 15 sometime in there. So
That's awesome.
anyhow, questions, comments, needs? Cool.
My tech tip.
You want your tech tip? All right. Well, I don't have a tech tip. You know what? I'm going to give a boomerang. If you're not updating your iOS, I have used that FaceTime share screen many a time, friends. It is pretty awesome. You can't share movies though, like you can't broadcast, your Netflix, but you can watch some YouTube videos or see multiple people together or play a game of Boggle. It's pretty cool. Check it out.
Play a game or something.
All right, Connolly, you're up. Thanks all.
All right, thank you, Teddy. Connolly Corner.
All right.
What do we got
We've got
today?
lots of news. So this was we like to watch the markets just to know, because they're always looking out a year, 18 months ahead. And so
So real quick, just to back up, because you talk about the markets. When we talk about markets as agents, oftentimes we're talking about the housing market. When you talk about the market, you're talking about the stock market, financial markets.
yeah.
I think those relate a lot.
Oh, I think so.
And
Yeah.
you think, so this is, you're looking
sure.
at this as kind of a long-term leading indicator for just the consumer confidence or investor confidence of how.
One of the nice things about owning real estate, I think, is like psychologically, it doesn't mess with you as much. Like you don't drive past or think about your house and like, my house just lost $40,000 in value yesterday. There's no one putting a price on it. But the financial markets are nice because you can kind of see real time what the world is thinking about where we're headed. And so we'll talk about some of the headwinds and why the markets are doing what they're doing this year. But you can see this was as of year to date as of Monday. So you can see where the NASDAQ, which is kind of a technology heavy, growth oriented index, is down over 22%. The S&P is down over 13%. Those are in like correction levels. So it's kind of a big deal. And then yesterday, if you'll hit the next slide, Zach, we were down even more. So the NASDAQ was down another 5% on top of that 22% we were already down. So you can just see yesterday was a
12,
particularly
144 down to 11. Okay.
yesterday was a particularly tough day in the investment world. You can see even great companies like Apple were down over 3%. Even once you see, usually there's a sector or two that's performed well. So this year, energy's been doing really well. And yesterday, even the energy market just got crushed. So you're starting to see investors just get kind of wanting to sit on the sidelines and scared, I guess. And so it was a broad decline. And a lot of that, there's a lot going on from Ukraine, but I think still the main worry for the market is inflation. Now, I did want to highlight, before we talk about inflation, highlight kind of where we are. This is a chart that shows 2 years of the S&P 500, your broadest kind of index that we follow. And so this is a 2-year time period. So basically from when the economy opened back up after COVID in 2020, May of 2020. And so you can see, like, it's not like we're that far, off of, I mean, it's been a decline, right? But still over the last 2 years, if you take, a longer
Where we
term
are today is
perspective.
like just where we were last spring.
Yeah. So it's, so it's not like the sky is
And it
falling.
does, it also, I mean, it'll do these ups and downs, obviously. So
Exactly. So important on the investment front, real estate, everything, like, just keep a long-term perspective.
don't sell. Sell your house.
Yes. So
Don't sell your stocks. Clarity.
yes. Okay. So I think the main thing that's causing all this is just, I mean, that's a pretty stark turn upwards in terms of inflation. And you can
Okay.
see, over a 20-year time period where we've been kind of in that band between 1% and 5% historically. And so we've kind of popped outside of that
So this is the annual, or I guess annual percentage
increase.
change.
Yeah.
Increase, decrease
Yeah.
over the previous year.
Right.
Okay. Cost of
So,
fuel, milk,
so we're,
consumer goods.
and we've got the new CPI number coming out tomorrow. So that'll be a really important number. You'll see it, and they're expecting to come in around 8.1%. So
What does CPI stand for? Consumer Price Index.
yeah, so the basket of goods and services they track, and they and so you'll see this, what's driving the CPI higher, and gas, used cars, electricity. That
If you're
sort
going to
of
buy
thing.
a used car that's not
One of the
fuel
things
efficient
that's-
and pay more for gas for it.
One of the things that's interesting, it's not in the CPI, but ought to be probably, is the next slide, and that is housing costs. And so this is an example of, so we've got rising interest rates because of inflation. You've had rising prices over the last year, right? Real estate prices in this market are up considerably. So basically a $400,000 mortgage from last year, you need a $480,000 mortgage this year to buy the same house, right? Because the price is up. Now, last year I was able to get a 3% mortgage, and my payment was going to be $1,686. This year I'm going to need north of 5%, and my payment's going to be, $1,000 almost more just to get the same house in 1 year's time period.
What do y'all think of that? Hunter, you're scaring me. But that's really interesting because we talked about the 1% equals 10% rule of thumb. We said that a lot. But when you take in 24.8% appreciation in 2021 market wide, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we going to get some good news here?
Not yet. Not yet.
Just keep going.
Yeah. So what you will see is, like, the normal average person like Zach responding to all this and saying, like, I don't think it's a great time to buy a house. And so you'll start seeing articles, and this was one that came out in Inman within the last week, showing a record low 19%, saying it's a good time to buy a home. 76% saying it's not a good time to buy a home. And so that deficit is, you take one, subtract one from the other, and you've got a negative net rating. So anyway, just kind of worth knowing if this is kind of what our clients are thinking. So, and like Zach was saying, being in a position to add some clarity and talk about why it's that way, and then also talk about, again, the long term. Don't just look what's going on in the last couple of months, but what's been going on in the last few years.
Yeah. So a few quick stats to have on the tip of your tongue. What was the appreciation last year market wide for Nashville?
30.
It was almost 25%, 24.8%. That's more than double what it was the previous year, which was the highest ever at 11%. So our average So that's increased our average. We talked about the average over the last 30, 40 years has historically been about 5%. Now it's almost 6%, just because, it's average and it got bumped up the last couple of years. So I think when people ask me, hey, what's happening in the market right now? One, I don't say, well, there's no inventory. It's just really hard out there.
Good.
And then just stop talking, right? So I will try to give some sort of insightful comment. And I'll say, there's a lot of buyers that are moving to Nashville. There's a lot of people that are making a transition. Houses are selling quickly, so there's low standing inventory, but there's still a lot of transactions that we're seeing.
I think it is important to practice and think about how you're going to respond. I mean, I get asked about the real estate market probably 2 or 3 times a day from just different people that know them. And if you just if you don't have something kind of in your mind that you believe and it makes sense to you, and you're just wasting an opportunity, I think. And
Wasting a big opportunity.
And a lot of agents, I think, will also, they'll have a possibility or a prospect in front of them, and because they answer the question like, how's the condo market right now? And if you don't have like a good question or a good answer lined up, I think, like I said, you're wasting an opportunity.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about, I actually have a few slides on that, so we can do a little role playing in a minute on
Nice.
that. Didn't know you were in for that. But yeah, so the market it has appreciated pretty substantially. So then the question that they're not asking, or maybe they will ask, is that sustainable, right? They might come out as like, oh, do you think we're in a bubble? Or do you think, something's going to crash? They use big words like that. I like to use the word is it's sustainable. My personal opinion is that appreciation rate is not sustainable. That does not mean that we will have depreciation, right? But my sense is that we'll have a slowing of appreciation and get back into a more kind of normal, historically normal level of appreciation. Mainly due to, because it's important to give points as to why, mainly due to interest rates going up. So the cost of getting a loan is a little bit more expensive. The housing cost is a little bit more in general. Kelly Ladwig was saying the other day, I was talking to her, and she said, I was talking to a buyer in California, and they were thinking about moving to Nashville. And so Kelly said, I sent them some, housing options. And they called back and said, Nashville's way more expensive than we thought it was. It was like, well, yeah, honey, you missed the last few waves. Like, you're a little late on the train kind of thing. That's what she was, she didn't really say that, but that was the kind of the joke, was that there are going to be some people that think Nashville is this steal, and it's not as much of a steal anymore, so they may not make a decision to move here. So I think the migration in is probably going to slow a little bit, which ultimately will make our jobs a little bit easier, because buyers will have time to take a breath, hopefully, and sleep on it rather than competing. Still watch the How to Win a Multiple Offer, because it's not going away just yet.
So this is showing just on the mortgage side, where mortgage rates currently are and have been. But it also shows this dark bar here are purchase buyers. So that's actually, and we now have May, and May was even with April. So we haven't seen purchases fall off at all in the last month. You have seen refinances and cash out refinances decline substantially, which makes sense because anyone who's doing a cash out right now at a much higher rate, your average mortgage rate out there right now is like 3.5%. Most everyone refinanced over the last wave.
When you say your average mortgage rate, you're talking about of existing loans,
Yeah.
not if you went to go get a loan today.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So if I own a home, like
Clarity.
on average, the rates around, would be average around 3.5. So you're not going to go take out, more money at 5.5 or 5.25 unless there's some sort of real financial need there. So that amount,
or unless you just want to do an addition, or there's there's certain reasons where the people will still do it, right?
That's the little bit. And then I thought this was interesting as well, and highlights kind of what I was saying. The cash out refinance. These are credit scores And so our credit quality is still staying really high on the purchase and the refi. It's the cash out refi that you're starting to see the credit score decline. And so, again, you wouldn't be making that decision unless you didn't have other options possibly. And so,
people
thought
are,
that
okay,
was
so that's interesting. So people who want to they realize they've got access to cash in a home that they own.
Yeah.
They want to access that, even though their credit's not as good, meaning they may not be as financially literate, but they're still able to access that cash equity in their home. That is interesting. Well, one thing that was that I saw a lot in 2009 and 10, you could look at tax records of foreclosures, and you would see like 3 years of, in the mortgage history, it's like refi,
really?
and then boom, foreclosure.
interesting. Well, that would kind of
So that's
substantiate
interesting.
this.
So
Yeah.
okay.
But still, overall credit quality is remain steady and pretty high. This last slide I just thought was interesting because this is real mortgage costs. So real mortgage costs would take the 30-year fixed rate mortgage and subtract CPI from it. And so basically, you can see that over time, we tend to stay in this kind of 0 to 4%. And so currently we've got CPI at like 8 and mortgage rates at 5. So we're like in the negative here. And this doesn't happen very often. So what I think that's saying is either mortgage rates are going to continue to grow and go beyond where they are currently, or inflation's going to have to come back down in line to where we don't have negative.
Man,
Mortgage.
Hunter is pulling out the wild, cool data today.
Yeah.
That
Makes sense though. If like the CPI, everything's getting more and more expensive at a rate of like 8%, we're not going to continue to see
that's a
mortgage
higher rate
rate.
of inflation.
Yeah, no one's going to lend out money at 5% if CPI is at 8%. And so one of those things are going to have to kind of come back in line over the long term. The last thing I'll say about mortgage rates is Christian, are you starting to see more competitiveness on the ARM side? So remember, like over the last few years, it's like, why would anyone ever do an ARM? Because it's like, I can get a 30-year fix for lower or almost as low. But we're starting to see those get more competitive. So keep in mind for your buyers out there that, when interest rates move this much, you may not want to lock in a 30-year, but doing something shorter term at a lower rate makes more sense.
So I think there's a lot of good information here. I want to celebrate our people a little bit. Can we do that?
Yeah, let's do
Y'all
it.
have been killing it.
Yes. Okay, so this is kind of fun. We've got our sales volume kind of on the far left, and this is growth year over year. This is just the first quarter, and it's just our agents that were here last year and here this. So it doesn't include like adding Pilkerton in that wasn't here, last year. This is just same store sales basically, and so we're doing really well on the sales volume growth side. The lighter bar on the right is 2022 first quarter, and the darker is left. And then this is our market share in the first quarter, really strong. And then the next slide shows our market share by units, which is even stronger. We're up over about 17% market share in terms of the number of units, which has been, it's one thing to have sales volume growth when prices are up 25% year over year. That'll provide some growth. But what you'll see here that we're doing a really good job relative to other firms is the unit growth, more transactions.
Yeah.
And there are only 3 companies that grew their transaction sides over the last year, and we were one of them. If you'll go to the next, so you can see we grew our transactions in a pretty tight, 40%, inventory decline, we still grew our transactions 4.3%, which is really impressive. So
It
congratulations.
is. Good work. And that was already after doing some really strong transactions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2021 was a really good first quarter, and so to do more than that in 2022 in this environment was really cool.
Yeah. I think like I'm looking at EXP, and my assumption for that is you get a lot of, kind of part-time agents in some of these companies, and it's easier as a part-time agent to just like bump in to a house that you can sell these days, right? And so, so you're going to see bigger swings in those types of companies than you are in the stable companies. So that's awesome.
Every other one though was down. So
Yeah, that's
really
great.
good.
All right, Christian, you want to come up and talk about mortgages?
Yes.
It's just news.
Actually,
It's just news. It's not good or bad.
actually, the rates on here are outdated. They're not 5.75. The last 2 days, they've actually gotten better by a quarter of a point. So I looked this morning and they're 5.5.
5.5. All
That's
right.
kind of how volatile they've been. So be sure and
Because you,
up to the
you
minute.
said this out like midday yesterday. Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Friday and yesterday morning they were 5.75 at the
Yeah.
worst, but now they're back down, and that kind of goes along with the stock market taking a big hit yesterday and today.
Okay. So you think today's a good day to lock?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So I always encourage people to log, but because we haven't had any days like yesterday and today in a while, it's
Where
just
it's that big of a swing.
where it's that big of a good swing.
A good swing. Okay.
We've seen more bad swings than good swings.
Okay. So you said you're getting a little bit more interest in ARMs.
Yeah.
What does an ARM stand for? Adjustable rate mortgage. Used to be, that was like a bad word
Yeah.
in the recession. Remember?
And I haven't done one. I mean, Connie and I talked about it yesterday. We've done more the last couple months than probably the last 10 years.
So that could be one, people doing it because it's a little bit more affordable because the rate is lower and so your monthly payment is lower. The other option is it could be a sign that there's a belief, optimism that rates in 3 to 5 to 7 years, whatever those ARM terms are going to change for the better, or at least not get substantially worse.
Right. Yeah, and
Kind
it's,
of a look at consumer confidence on the mortgage front.
yeah, and the spread is there now. Like probably 6 months ago, the spread was 1/8 of a point. So there's no reason in doing an adjustable rate when you can lock it in for 30 years.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about this. What do we got here?
It's blank.
I think what I got was blank.
Really? Can got a
We'll talk. Just talk for a second and let me see
just
if I can do
talk. What the numbers, and the numbers actually aren't that important. I mean, they are important to see, but, and I can email
it. I
this
was
to
wondering why it
everybody.
was blank.
Was it really? I've got a printed out version if you want me to hold it up in front of the camera.
Hang on.
I was really talking about appraisal gaps. A lot of people think, and that we've talked about this ad nauseum probably, but a lot of people think if there is an appraisal gap between your appraisal value and the purchase price, that you have to pay that cash out of pocket. And it's not always the case. That's really only the case if you have 3 or 5% down. So if you have, this example was an example of a 20% buyer paying $800,000 for a $700,000 listed price. And these scenarios basically show the cash out of pocket really can stay within $5,000. Like you don't have to. Do you want me to try to email it to you again?
We're about to do some real time.
All right. You're way more tech savvy than I am.
We're just gonna kind of make this big on the fly. All right, there you go.
There you
What do we
go.
got?
So we have a $700,000 listed price, and obviously you're going to have to pay $800 to get it at least, most likely. So this kind of shows different scenarios. This is if it isn't a good appraisal, and Steadfast, we have good appraisers on our panel, and knock on wood, I haven't had a whole lot of value issues, even on these inflated prices. So that's important to know. So these columns indicate a $750,000 appraisal. But if you notice, the cash to close, you don't have to pay $50,000 extra. You can get away with only roughly $2,000 extra. And that's basically because your loan to value goes from 80 to 85 when you take, and this is way too in the weeds, and I can explain this to your buyer so you don't have to.
But it's important to know that this is an option.
But it's just an option, and I usually run this by my buyers before they're offering, just so you know, like, you don't have to come out of pocket with all this cash. There are other
Appraisal, bad
options.
appraisal, even worse.
Even worse. So if you see, even at a $700,000 appraisal versus an $800,000 appraisal, the cash to close is only about $5,000 off. And that is basically your prepaying upfront PMI.
So how's the monthly payment still? Okay.
So you're paying a one-time fee, in this case at $5,500, since your loan to values technically, according to us, in the 90s, but that's still a doable loan to value. Monthly payment staying the same. So the numbers, you know, again, I can get into that with the buyers, but it's important for them to know that,
It feels like magic.
yeah.
Good to have an expert. Yeah. So talk to anybody steadfast, Roger, Connie, Christian, and help understand this. This is really important. These are tools that you can use to help your buyers win.
And waive appraisal. I mean, I always say if you're okay with this worst case scenario that it's going to appraise at list price, waive the appraisal. Because, I mean, how many offers do you get accepted where you're contingent on an appraisal? Not many.
Y'all have questions on this?
Yeah.
Gary Payne.
Couple of questions. That's all I'm doing.
All right,
Say it
listing
again.
agents are asking for proof of funds to cover an appraisal gap. So let's say it is a $700,000 list price, $800,000 offer, and the listing agent says, all right, I see your pre-approval. Can you also show me a bank account statement with $100,000 extra in it, in addition to whatever you're going to put for your down payment that's listed on this
And
pre-approval?
that's when I say that's not necessary.
Okay.
Well,
And why?
But you can lose an offer.
Well, so that's a really important way then, again,
To get us
a
in
piece of paper is worth
Yeah.
something, having a human conversation. I think at that point, you say, they're actually going to change the loan to value ratio. They're approved for that. I'm going to have our lender give you a call and explain that.
And that's just the
Hey,
listing
this-
agent.
You don't get the pricing until offers fail. So if the, I don't know, maybe I'm.
Should use the 80% loan amount.
Okay.
No, that's when I just explained to the listing agent, they don't have to come up with 100 plus their down payment. Their existing down payment of 20% basically covers
So
that
you
gap
explain this during the offers.
during offer. Yeah.
Which your point is, you may not get a chance to do that.
Yeah, it's, and I do have, I know you know I love you, but I don't use you.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let's talk. Maybe drinks. No, my lender, I mean, I can't call.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to 3 people on Mother's Day and I saw the phone ring and I'm like, but I mean, and it was kind of the same situation. They understood it and we didn't win the offer, but we got close.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, what makes a seller accept an offer, right? There's a few things, but a lot of it has to do with risk. At the end of the day, what we are doing as agents and buyers and sellers is we are playing hot potato with risk, right? Who wants to take on more risk? The seller or the buyer? The seller or the buyer, right? We're negotiating risk. And the risk is, this may be a great offer, the risk for the seller. This may be a great offer, but it's only good if it closes, right? So that's what they're trying to determine is, do I want to take the highest absolute price if there's a higher risk that it won't close? And so what Christian's trying to do with this is to mitigate that risk and help the sellers understand that, and the buyers, that yes, this can still close even if there's an appraisal gap.
And they don't have $100,000.
And even if they don't have $100,000 extra sitting in cash. So I think let's keep talking about this, because I think this is something that we can just again, clarity. It's not
Yeah.
totally clear right now, but this is really awesome stuff.
No, there are options out there.
Yeah, there are options.
It's our job to explain them.
All right. Great.
Oh,
Steadfast
this
at your
is good.
service. All right. So, how's the market? What do you all say when you? What do you say when you're asked how's the market? There's a lot of buzz. Christian, you created a lot of buzz.
Well, this is kind of the conversation we were having before. We get this question
All the time.
all the time, and so what would Zach a good way to answer this? That a lot of us here have done ninja. How would a ninja answer this kind of question?
Well, so who's supposed to do most of the talking? You or the person you're talking to? The other person, right? Right. David Payne says that is the hardest thing he's ever done is let somebody else talk. David's like ready to come up here. So one thing you can ask is, well, what have you heard?
That's good.
Right?
I've heard. Okay, I've heard. Let's play it out. I've heard that that is really hot and potentially overpriced.
Okay. So I could then start my spiel. Or I could ask more questions, right? What segment of the market are you interested in?
Oh, I'm interested.
Or are you curious about? I think some of these are depending upon like, is the person you're talking to like legitimately asking you as a, hey, I'm thinking about maybe getting into the market, or is this like a
cocktail
cocktail
dinner.
party conversation where it's not this forward, but the idea is, what segment of the market are you interested in? Or
And that's a good point too, because the low end may be different than the super high end right now, and so that does show that you've got some sort of knowledge about both, and still
yeah,
we're still having you're still gaining more information before you're answering. So
Absolutely.
let's say I'm interested in the $750 to $1 million price point.
yeah. So at that point, I think you can talk to them, right?
Yeah.
And you can start a conversation where you're not just giving your spiel. I think it's important to have those facts and that spiel in your head. And if you don't know the answer, just speak in general terms. While the market's appreciated almost 25% this year as a whole, that 750 to, what did you say?
Million.
750 to $1 million mark is actually probably even hotter. I wouldn't call that a first-time buyer market, but that is definitely the kind of the second move-up market now, which is pretty new in the last year or two. What part of town do you live in?
Forest Hills.
Forest Hills. Have you seen a lot of for sale signs going up?
Not a lot, not a ton.
Not a ton?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there is actually still a good bit of transaction volume. Right now, there's not a ton of standing inventory, which means that there's still properties that are coming on the market, but because of buyer demand, because as you've heard, you've probably met a few people that are moving to town, there's a lot of buyers that want houses, and so they're snatching those up fairly quickly. A lot of them are turning into multiple offer situations, and so that's helping to increase the pricing a little bit.
I think the point that you're doing a really good job with in this conversation, this pretend conversation, is you're getting some information, but you're also offering some knowledge. And so I think the mistake that that some agents have is this kind of the "it depends" answer. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
how's the market? Well, or
Well,
it
kind of
depends. And so I think having
Or
a
it's
little
wild,
more,
yeah, it's-
making some sort of, there, you're really trying to close me here.
So this would be a question where, like, let's say, because sometimes people may ask that, and maybe you mentioned like, yeah, we're thinking about moving. Remember, you're always listening for those pain points, pain, pleasure, right? You're questioning for those, and so maybe somebody's saying like, yeah, like, gosh, that's nuts. It sounds like it's hard to buy right now, but I don't know. At some point, we're gonna have to pull the trigger on something. I'll need to talk to you about that.
Or with prices where they are now, we're thinking about maybe moving down. We've got another
Yeah.
kid graduating and may not, so either you look for things like that.
Yeah.
Because with prices where they are, I may be more of a seller. You know?
Right. And so there's different ways to ask this. One is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're ready to buy something today, how quickly you want to do something? Oh, I'm not ready to do anything today. That's great. Would you like me to keep you informed
Yeah.
of the market? In fact, I offer a service to all of my clients from over the years where I do a real estate review. I'd be happy to send you something, just give you a kind of an evaluation of market report in your neighborhood if that's helpful.
Essentially, I've got a friend who's in kind of like in the retail real estate world, and I noticed that. So he bought this piece of property that he subdivided into three different lots. And he's building a house on one. His business partner's building one on the other, and the third one they put for sale. And his agent is Devin McFarland, who's an agent with us. And so I'm like good friends with this guy, and so I call him. I was like, "Hey, I saw you listed with Devin McFarland. Why did you do that?" He said, "Well, I know like 15 different agents all over town, and I'm always asking them to, hey, keep me updated if you see something I need to buy, because he's kind of an interested real estate investor." And he said, "I've got closer friends than Devin who are in the business. She's the only one that would consistently send me ideas and be thinking or email me with a property."
Great job, Devin.
And she got the listing. And so anyway, it's just a reminder that like just keep dripping and adding value along the
Add
time.
value and be visible, yeah.
And your prospects will turn into clients.
Yeah. So I think, just in terms of these conversations, when somebody's asking about how's the market, you want to address their fears, right? There's this fear of like no inventory. If there was literally no inventory, we would all be out of a job. All of us. So if you sold a house this year, I promise you there's inventory, right? It just comes on and off quickly. If you remember the three main buyers, the three main fears that a buyer has, this is universal. They're afraid of missing something. They're afraid of buying a broken house, something that's got a problem, and they're afraid of paying too much. What do you think of at least two of those are very real fears right now, right? Missing something, something came on and went off. I'm afraid as an agent of missing something for, a client, I'm sure, right? So, and then the fear of paying too much. So what is the actual value? Well, addressing those. Sometimes even just saying like, a lot of buyers right now are
It's funny, the
fearful that
missing
they're-
something and the paying too much are almost like missing out on something. So they want to like not miss out on it and put a strong offer in, but they're also afraid of paying too much.
Yeah.
So
So
it's-
doing what Devin did, that guy had an interest in not missing something, which could also be said as a slight fear of missing something.
yeah.
And so he's relying on somebody to help inform him. Devin addressed that and took care of it. And then based on her negotiating skills, she was able to make sure he didn't pay too much. Time of possession, just a reminder, let the buyer do the talking. And then this would be if somebody's genuinely like serious and getting down, are you thinking about paying cash or would you prefer getting a mortgage? Right? Sometimes we can forget, and these are not pushy questions. You can ask them in an elegant way. And if somebody's at that point, understanding how serious are they? Because I guarantee you that your friends, closer real estate agent friends, probably never got to the point where they actually knew how serious he was.
Yeah.
But Devin did. So good job, Devin. Where to find market data? Just to remember, you go to parksathome.com/backend. You can look at trend graphics. That's a link. So parksathome.com/backend. Scroll all the way to the bottom, click on trend graphics. If you know how to use RealTrax, you know how to use trend graphics. All you have to do, select the county or city or zip code, and you can look at trends. What trend graphics does that's different than RealTrax is it looks at trends over time. So I can't look at RealTrax very effectively and say 3 months ago, what was the inventory, right?
Yeah.
Based on 2 months ago, based on this month. In trend graphics, it snapshots that every month, and you can look at those trends. So for instance, this is, let's see here, this is Davidson County, May of last year, there were 1,957 listings. Almost 1,700 of those came on the market that month, right? Let's say that was April. We don't have May's data yet because it's just May 10th. And so inventory was down a little bit, right? 1,500 versus 2,000. So yeah, inventory is down 25%. Standing inventory is down 25%. Fewer homes came in the market. Only 1,300 came in the market as opposed to almost 1,700. But you can get quick snapshots. You can download these graphs, put them on social media. They're really easy. You can create this pretty report. You can send it out. If you want to use this as a real estate review, you can do that. The point is with data is to just have a story. It just gives you some talking points and gives you some confidence that you're not just saying things off the cuff. So try it out. Again, if you can use real tracks, you can figure out trend graphics because it's the same fields.
If you need help logging in, let us know.
Let
We'll
us
get
know.
you all
Yeah.
set up.
It's easy. So let's talk about list prices. So one of the things I was doing a search yesterday, I was curious and just kind of looking at, list prices because I've talked to a lot of agents. I've talked to a lot of you all and said, gosh, it's listed at X and it sold for $50,000 more or $300,000 more. It's a big difference, right? So this idea of a list price, I think we need to start looking at that and maybe coaching our buyers, and I'm curious for y'all's insights on this, that is a suggestion. It's a box that you have to fill in on MLS, right? It doesn't really determine anything other than it's something you have to fill out. And I think the more that we can kind of coach our buyers that stop using that as this benchmark litmus test for, oh my God, I'm having to pay $50,000 over the list price. Well, what is the list price? I mean, it's a little bit arbitrary, right? So I looked at Brentwood. I just did a search from, I think, 800,000 to 1.5 million. Only 9 of the 49 homes, there were 49 sales in the last 3 months. 9 of them sold below the asking price. One of them was for $50 less. It was new construction, so with like a random number, so I think that might have even just been a typo. 12 of them sold for the asking price. The remaining 28 homes all sold for more than the asking price, ranging from $11,000 over the asking price to a whopping $450,000 over the asking price. If you see that and you try to argue with me that a list price is not arbitrary in a lot of senses, like, I think you're wrong, because I think it is. 23 of those 28 sold for 6 figures, $100,000 or more of the asking price. That is enough to instill panic in a buyer, right? But there's two takeaways from this. One, help coach your buyers that, like, let's stop looking at list prices. Let's just look at the market and try to understand, okay, that's the list price. Forget about what it says there. Let's just look at the house. Let's look at other houses like that have sold. Let's see what those have sold for. You can look at closed data and do this. Like, I literally just did the CMA. I just highlighted it, popped it in a spreadsheet, and then I just did some quick math because our CMA report doesn't do this very easily, but you can just even glance at it on the CMA, but I just did a little formula. And so, oh, look, that was listed at $749.9 and sold for $740. Somebody got a deal. It was on the market for 13 days, so something must have been terribly wrong with it. But look at that, $432,100, $450,000. So some of these things were just way underpriced.
It is interesting. You're going to start to see this balance out, I think, over the next month or so. The next month's data will look a lot different, and you're starting to see people price things up towards the limit.
Yeah, and right, and try and push those price limits where it will even out a little bit more. And so some agents will price things arbitrarily low to try to generate that buzz and craziness, hence the $450,000, like that's bananas. Yeah.
So, in that circumstance where you say that it's for $450,000 above the
List price.
list price, how do you think that seller is gonna feel about her agent? Did she price it too low? Did she price it? I mean, what is confusing in this market to me is, yeah, I can definitely give you a window and then you decide on what price you're going to give the property.
Yeah.
But doing the CMA, usually you could have. But nowadays it does.
So yeah, man. So there's a few questions in there. I think one of them is how do we as agents make sure, one, that we're giving our sellers the best advice and the best service. We can look at a range. Nobody has a magic wand that can pick an exact price. What does a house sell for? What a what? Ready, willing, and able buyer will pay for it. Right? That's the value of a house. Takes one buyer. Right? When an appraiser comes in, a lot of times people will say, well, like, oh, well, you know, it appraised for this. Well, an appraisal is just an opinion. We had a deal a few years ago, had a buyer buying a $3 million house in East Nashville, which doesn't happen that often. And cash deal, but he wanted to get 2 different appraisals just to get some insight. 2 appraisers, same house, 3 days apart. You know what the 2 appraisals came in? How different they were? $1 million apart. I kid you not. Like, it's an opinion, right? So it's one person's opinion. And
Meet the appraiser at the appraiser.
yeah, meet the appraiser at the appraisal, for sure. But the point being is I think as an agent, I think it's important to look at all of this data. Don't just look at the averages, but take a snapshot of this and, you know, say like, all right, you know, of the 28 out of the 49 homes, so over half of them sold for over asking price. So either agents priced them too low, or buyers are just not paying any attention or just on such a feeding frenzy. But I think you can make a solid argument that if the value of a home is what a ready, willing, able buyer will pay for it, then those agents probably priced it too low. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think I would always present things as choices and consequences. If you can price something at market, we should be able to get good interest. There's enough buyers out there right now. We can get strong interest and get a fair, equitable price that gets you where you want to be on time, right? Because can they sell their house for $2 million? Sure, it might take 3 years, but they can do it. Our job is to help them get them where they're going on time,
All right, let's wrap it up.
right? So,
It's time.
Hunter's ready. All right, anyway, that's the point. Coach your buyers to use and list prices. All right, talk more about that later.
Yeah.
That's it. I feel like we just like be played.
That was a lot. That was a lot.
Negotiating tough conversations, that is starting right now or in a few minutes. So this is if you have reduced your commission on a list side anytime in the last few years, please attend this.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Good work.